I've referenced a couple times using a mobility scooter at Disney when I was here for a vacation a couple of months ago. I came here only a few days after I'd been diagnosed with runner's dystonia, and in the weeks leading up to the trip, even though I didn't know what was going on with me, I knew I would not be able to handle the walking, the standing, the days of walking and standing. It was a huge blow to my ego, to be honest, and emotionally, I just did not want to accept that I would be a person that needed a mobility scooter at Disney. I have run half marathons here. I did the marathon just the previous year here, and I had been set to do the Goofy Challenge in January of 2024, where you run a half marathon and a marathon on back-to-back days at 5 a.m. And unfortunately, due to my issues with my foot, I just didn't show up. So coming off of being such a physically active person and being such a physically active person here was really, really a tough pill to swallow. I had never looked at Disney in that way. Obviously, I noticed people on mobility scooters and ECVs, but I never really thought of like all of the logistics of it. So a big source of stress was just, how am I going to do this and navigate this? So I'm going to share you some options for mobility scooters at Disney and how it kind of worked for me. And I hope this video can be helpful for you if you're facing that decision. And it was a little bit of a learning curve, but it was actually much easier than I thought it would be. And a lot of the stressors that I had about it, like especially running out of batteries, like at the back of Epcot or who knows where, and not being able to find a plug, didn't end up panning out. You have different options for mobility scooters at Disney. The first is that you can rent them in the park. And you do this at the front of any park. So like the front of Magic Kingdom, the front of Epcot, the front of Hollywood Studios, the front of Animal Kingdom. And of course, like anything, just like the strollers, they're subject to availability. I don't know if they really ever sell out or not. They seem to have like hundreds and hundreds of these things. I don't know what the going rate is for it daily. And oh my, it's starting to rain. So I'm gonna go try to go sit under, and I can't run. It's a good thing that this camera is waterproof. Tomorrow is supposed to be Hurricane Helene, and we are starting to get kind of the first effects of that. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a direct hit or anything like that. But if you are stuck in a hurricane, you 100% want to be stuck at Disney World, because it has its own power grid. It has all the food, it has all the beverages, it has all the booze, it has all the activities, and they will take care of you very nicely. Okay, yay, picnic shelter. So as I was saying, the first option is to rent a mobility scooter from the park itself, and you do that at the front of the parks, subject to availability. I'm not sure if they ever sell out, and you do it for a daily fee. If you start at Magic Kingdom and you rent one there, and then you decide that you want to park hop to Epcot, you return the mobility scooter to the front of the park again where you had rented it, and then you can get on the monorail, and then you have to go and show your ticket or proof that you had already rented one to the desk at Epcot, and then you can get another one without paying for it. So you can't transfer the mobility scooters in between the parks, but you don't have to pay like another daily fee if you want to park hop and use one at one park and use another at another park. So for some people, this might pose a challenge because they might not be able to walk. You know, say going from Magic Kingdom to Epcot, you might not be able to walk, you know, out of the park, up the ramp to the monorail, be on the monorail, and then come back down the monorail to wherever you rent it at Epcot. I think you can also rent them at Disney Springs. I will check on that. Okay, and I think the rain stopped, so I'm gonna start walking again. I'm gonna start my watch again. All right. And now it's gonna be hot because everything's gonna be evaporating. Another option is to rent from one of the services outside of Disney World. They are typically the same ones that do stroller rentals. They tend to come with different types of ECVs and mobility scooters. So there's a little bit more of an option. And then you also get to keep the mobility scooter with you throughout your stay. They will deliver it to you at your resort. And it's usually a pretty easy thing to do. I don't know anyone who's rented a mobility scooter that way, but I definitely know people who have rented strollers from the same company, and it's like super easy. And similarly, you just leave it at your resort at the end of the stay. So the benefits of this obviously are that you can bring your mobility scooter anywhere that you go. So you can use it all around the resort. You can use it going, in the parks and then in between the parks, because if you rent again from Disney at the parks, you can only use it in that park, and you need to leave it at that park if you want to go back to your resort or if you want to go to another park. So although it's going to help you with those long days through the park, you're going to be on your own for your resort, and kind of like when you're doing the transportation from different parks or resort to park and park to resort. Lastly, you can bring your own mobility scooter. This is what I did because I had a friend who lent me one of their relatives that they weren't using, and we actually drove that trip, so we brought it with us. And for me, that was just at the time, because all of this was so new to me, just the way less stressful option, because I used the mobility scooter at home. I used it to like walk the dog and, just kind of played around with it, going around the neighborhood. And I got to get a sense of like how long the battery would last and how fast it would go, and just got used to like the turning radius and things like that. You don't need to bring your own mobility scooter, but I was just lucky enough to have that option to borrow one. So I felt much more prepared coming into the trip, that I already knew how to use it, how long it's gonna, be expected to charge up the battery to full, and then how long the battery is gonna last on the other end. There are differences between mobility scooters. The ones that you rent from Disney directly are like huge and very heavy. So this gives them a couple of different advantages. One is that, the weight limit for it is pretty high. 2, the battery lasts all day long. One of the reasons that unfortunately, though, the battery does last all day long is because they have the scooters set permanently to like turtle mode. Like they go on the lowest speeds, which are probably under 2 miles per hour. They go very, very slowly, but this will literally get you from rope drop to fireworks goodnight kiss. It will get you all day. Another advantage from renting from Disney is, obviously if there's like a problem where the mobility scooter breaks down or something happens, they'll just swap you out, easy peasy. If you rent from one of the external companies, from the research I did, I'm sure they will like get someone out there to get the one that's broken and sub out one, but obviously it's not going to happen in the park when you want it to happen at that moment. So it's still going to take a little bit of coordinating, and might not happen until the evening or maybe the next morning, because they have kind of scheduled drop-off times. And I could be wrong, but I think probably, Disney is going to hook you up way better with their magic. An advantage of going with an outside company is that you have multiple ECVs to choose from. So you can get ones that have different weight limits and, have different features like a cup holder or like a basket, stuff like that. If you're in a situation like me where you're a relatively smaller person and don't need a big ECV or anything fancy, you really just need something to tool around in real fast to get from here to there to here to there, you can get one that is a lightweight portable one. And this fortunately was the one that my friend let me borrow, and it was such a lifesaver. Because we had a car, because we drove, we were able to fold the seat down and lift it up. 2 adults definitely need to lift it up and put it into the back of the SUV. I think it was about, I'm gonna guess here, I'll correct it in the video if I'm wrong, maybe high 30s or 40 pounds. So definitely doable with 2 people. Needs to be 2 kind of stronger people. If you have other issues going on, you might not want to be doing the heavy lifting. Make sure the stronger person lifts the back part, because that has the battery. And if you're like me and I wasn't very strong, then I lifted the front part. But we were definitely totally able to do that together. Oh, a runner. I'm so jealous. I've already seen her go around a couple times. You're awesome. Yes. Don't you wish the path to Fort Wilderness was open so you could get your miles in? Yes. Disney, listen to me. The disadvantage of getting the ones that are more portable like that is that the battery does not last as long, but this is also because you can like crank that up to rabbit. Like literally mine had a dial that said turtle and rabbit, and I was rabbit all the time. And I had played around with it before I went on my trip, and I did like the bike mode on my Garmin to see how fast it was gonna go. And if you're going downhill, like you can almost get, 4.5 miles per hour, but if you're going flat, kind of the max speed, it's maybe like a 3.8, 3.9. And then if you go uphill, it's slower. But I liked going fast. That was fun. But it will drain the battery quicker. Like I said, one of my anxieties before going on that trip was like, I'm going to run out of batteries and I'm going to be like way at the back of World Showcase at Epcot, or I'm going to be like stuck, who even knows, Safari, Animal Kingdom, and we're not going to be able to like roll the scooter all the way back through the park and get it all the way back to the car in the parking lot, which is usually a longer walk than even getting out of the park. Here we go, the rain again. It's a nice rain. I don't mind it. The first couple days then, I was kind of on like electrical outlet hunt, which is few and far between at Disney World because they don't want people just like charging their phones and sitting wherever in the ride queues or outside a building or wherever you can find a plug. There are not a lot of plugs in Disney World, and you can find, I'm sure, websites who are dedicated to finding where like the prized electrical outlets are. Oh boy, here we go again. Here's the rain. Here's a nice little awning I'm gonna go underneath here. All right, hang out here for a bit. A lot of times quick service restaurants will have outlets, so if you're already having lunch somewhere or dinner somewhere, you can try to find a table that's close to an outlet and then use that to charge up your scooter. It ended up not being a problem for me just because of the way that I do Disney, is that I always go back to the resort midday for like a recharge, nap, pool, something, get out of the heat, get out of like the crazy sensory madness of music and noise and screaming and all that all day. It would be totally fine all morning. It didn't even get to yellow, but I would always plug it in, recharge it up, and then be good to go. No worries, no anxiety for the rest of the afternoon and evening. Rain stopped again. Okay. If you do end up using a mobility scooter at Disney and you do run out of power, cast members will definitely help you find a plug and help roll it to wherever that needs to be. You just put it in neutral and get a couple people to help push it along and you'll be fine. Another thing about battery life is that I only used the mobility scooter to go between the resort and the park and then go in between the different lands in the parks or like different rides that were pretty far apart. I was fortunate enough that at that point, after really only about 10 days of trying to walk again, that even in that 10 days, I like built up enough strength to be able to do all of the ride queues. An example of that is I would park it in Tomorrowland. A note on that is that there are different areas for stroller parking versus ECVs. So in Tomorrowland, it's like right under the People Mover. Then I could use it as like my home base and go to the People Mover, go to the Carousel Progress, go to Buzz Lightyear, go to the Tomorrowland Speedway, and nothing was really far from that. So I was fortunate that I wasn't having to use the mobility scooter to like go from ride to ride, and I did not need to use it in any of the ride queues. I'm gonna turn around and show you something here that I think is a big lie. Here is your running trail for Wilderness Lodge. That little red dotted lines. That's where I've been walking for this whole video. It's only a half a mile. It gets real boring real quick, but at least they have something. I'm gonna be staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge tomorrow, and they have absolutely nothing. If you're a runner, never stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge, or else you'll be on the treadmill, miserable. There are multiple rides at Disney that you can take your ECV in the entire ride queue, and they will help you kind of get off and like put it in a different area where then you can get on the ride yourself, which is called like a transfer. It's called like a must transfer, that you have to physically be able to get off of your scooter onto the ride. And then at the end of the ride, it will be there waiting for you, and it's easy enough to get on. The only ride that I did take this scooter for like the whole ride queue, or almost the whole ride queue, is the Safari, because the Safari, there's no like scooter or stroller parking right outside of it. It's actually like through most of the ride queue. So they will tell you, stay on your ECV, keep your stroller with you, and then when you're almost through the entire ride queue, they will have you, they roll your scooter or put your ECV in neutral, and then they roll it over to the stroller and scooter parking for you. So then when you get off the ride, you can just pick it up on the way out. That, though, then does require a little bit of walking still to get to the Safari vehicle. And then when you get off of the Safari vehicle, a little bit of walking to get back to your ECV or your stroller. And remember, there's always a million different things that you can do where you stay in your mobility scooter, like all the videos at Epcot, like Canada Far and Wide, Reflections of China, whatever the one in America is called. I thought I was actually going to end up doing all those for the trip, but I actually didn't end up doing any of them. And it kind of would have been fun, because like that would have been the time to kind of just actually see what those things were and hang out in the air conditioning. But fortunately, I was doing so much better with just my stamina and walking at that point, that pretty much I got to do all the normal rides and things that we normally do on the trip. But I hear Canada Far and Wide is an awesome video, so you should totally go watch it. Pro tip is, if you will be coming with a mobility scooter or renting one from an outside company, so you will have it at the resort with you, request if you can get like a first floor room or one that's close to the lobby, just so you're not, toting it into the elevator, and then it's just easier just to kind of like roll it on in. We were very, very lucky to get a first floor room when I had the mobility scooter, so I just like rolled it right on in. And depends on the room that you have, but generally most people, if you have like a standard hotel room, will plug the mobility scooter in the hallway, because there's usually not enough room in the room. And there may not be a policy where you have to keep the mobility scooter in the hallway, but I didn't, because it was small enough. So I rolled it right on in the room and kept it plugged in the room. So there was no worries that, it has keys, no one's gonna steal it, but I could still keep the park stuff that we had in the basket, and like didn't need to unload everything every time. So just something to think about as well when you're choosing how to rent or use your scooter. Originally, when I was thinking about possibly using a mobility scooter in the parks, I had asked one of the Run Disney Facebook groups, because I felt like those people would know my pain and have probably been through some injuries and things where they've had to make that kind of same decision for their emotions and ego like I had to. And pretty much everybody's like, girlfriend, you gotta get a mobility scooter. Like, you're not gonna make it through with crutches. You're not gonna make it through with a knee scooter. You're not gonna make it through with an ankle brace, like a calf boot. Like, it's just gonna be a lot easier for you. Just do it. And I have to admit, I didn't want to hear it at the time, but they were totally 100% right. I've shockingly seen so many people here wearing like ankle and calf boots and walking around the park. And I'm like, don't do that to yourself. Oh, that's gonna cause way more problems than it's worth. I feel for your hips, I feel for your knees, I feel for your other foot that's like not even the same height as the boot. because you can get like those things that go on the bottom of your shoe. I actually did for a little bit when I had the calf boot, then evens out your hips, and that was so much better, but it was still very torturous being in a calf boot. So just swallow your pride, get a mobility scooter. If you have any questions about using an ECV at Disney, please feel free to ask in the comments. I'm not sure if I covered everything in this video. I tried to recall kind of all the research that I had done and the options that I had gone over and just my general experience, but I probably forgot something. Gonna end with some fancy music here, sitting outside Boulder Ridge. I hope that giving you some information about how it is to use a mobility scooter at Disney has been helpful, whether you're watching this channel because you have runner's dystonia or another mobility issue, or if you just find it because you're a person who wants to go to Disney and you're not sure if you're going to be able to physically be able to walk all the steps daily and be on your feet for that long. Disney is really the place if you have any mobility issues that, like, it's the most accepting place. It's the easiest place. I wasn't taking a trip to London or New York City or anything like that. Like, this is the place where if that's just what you need in your life right now to be able to live your life, you can do it. Until next time.